Freaky. Give me a break. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the brand new episode of the Team Unconventional Podcast. My name is Matt, and I am your host for the evening, and I am joined by my other host, JT.
Great to be back so soon.
Yeah, it's very weird that we're doing weeklies now. It's kind of exciting.
Very exciting.
And I'm joined by the Duke himself, Mike.
Hello, peasants. It's so nice to be here again so soon, as JT said. Can't wait to hear more.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really, really good time. And we're joined by Tyler once again, his creepy shadow himself.
Woo! That's right.
And today we're going to be a little bit more of a lighthearted podcast. Episode 5 should be releasing today. It was finally rendered out like this morning at like 4 a.m. Took a long time.
We can't afford an editor yet.
Huh?
We can't afford an editor yet. So,
no,
you have to do it all.
Yeah, it's like you'll just have to stick with me for a little bit longer.
Edit more, slave.
So a couple of things before we get started. We are still in delegations for a podcast next week. It's going to be Thanksgiving holiday for the United States crowd. So probably we'll do one, probably won't, but we'll leave it up to discussion for a later date. The LAIC is currently being done, and we're not ruining any of the spoilers, but we will have some stats of day 1 for both TCG and VGC, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about Julius's adventure from Soul Silver all the way up until Scarlet and Violet, which I'm kind of excited about. And we have a little bit of a spotlight to highlight today in today's cast. So let's go ahead and get started with some TCG stats. Mike, what do you have for us from the LAIC?
Well, not a whole lot. Basically, what I have is deck usages from day 1. Out of 1,258 Master Division trainers. This was provided by Zapdos TCG on his Instagram, and he got the information from RK9 Labs. So the top 6 decks in usage. The first one was Gardevoir EX with a 17.8%, 224 decks in usage. Then it drops down to Charizard EX at a 16.1% usage, 202 decks. So those are pretty close, pretty neck and neck. But then there's a little bit of kind of a drastic drop off to the third deck, which is Chin-Pao EX. It has a 9.9% usage with 125 decks, with Lost Zone Giratina V-Star coming in right behind it at a 9.6% with 121 decks. And then it drops a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit down to 9.1%, which is Roaring Moon EX. 115 decks in use there. And then it drops to 8% with 101 decks for Miraidon EX. And then there's 30% of other decks being used. So that was the decks, the top 6 decks from day 1 in usage. Haven't seen what happened on day 2 yet, so can't spoil anything there.
Would you mind giving us a quick breakdown of what exactly each of those overall strategy is?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
Non-TCG player really only know Chin-Pao as energy accelerating blue.
Well, Gardevoir EX, its big thing is that when it's out there, it can put energy, I think it's from the discard pile, onto a Pokemon, but that Pokemon takes 20 points of damage every time that Gardevoir puts it on there.
Is it limited to once per turn?
Not in that. You can do it once per turn, but you can put as much energy as you want to onto. Wow. You're just going to take the 20 points of damage to that Pokemon each time.
Ooh.
So I believe they use just the regular other Gardevoir, which I think I haven't played this deck. I've played against it, but I haven't really played it all that much. But it's a top tier deck, and it's been that way for I think since last year.
It sounds to me like this would be this format's version of like reloading concept. Like the Pokemon TCG does a cool thing where it rotates every year, sets out, but it seems to replay themes in different colors and with different mons. And it's sounding to me like the ability to set up any Pokemon right after you put it into play for just the cost of some chip damage on it sounds pretty strong. Is it Gardevoir? Is it a single prize, the attacker, or is it?
No,
Uh,
Gardevoir. Oh, the Gardevoir that attacks. Yeah, is usually a single prize.
wow.
With the EX obviously being a two prizer. It's a fun deck to play against. There are counters for it, but it's a fun deck to play against. It's kind of challenging because you have to decide what you're going to take out, and if you got to get lucky and maybe get a boss's orders to take out that Gardevoir EX before it can start rolling. But
And
it
I'm
uses
assuming that it's all purple, the psychic energy. Is that right?
yes, it's all psychic. It uses the Ralts and then the I can't remember what the name of the middle evolution is.
Corellia.
Corellia, that has the one where you can you can send a card to your discard pile to draw 2 cards. Refinement, I believe, is that one. So you can do that once per turn. So if you have 3 of the Kirlias up or whatever they are, you can do that 3 times to draw big hands and hopefully get the cards you're looking for.
Dang.
Which means you could filter out your energy to be used later
Yes.
for the next evolutions. Yeah, that's pretty
I
strong
believe is
energy.
I believe that's the focus of the deck is to get cards, energy card into your discard pile, so then you can use a Gardevoir EX to
So
get
what's
it.
this Charizard?
Charizard
Sorry to jump
EX.
around. Is it
Charizard EX.
red? Is it fire?
It's
The
dark.
majority of us are out of the
It's
TCG.
dark.
So
It's
please.
dark.
Okay.
The Charizard EX is dark. And you use Pidgeot EX with that because Pidgeot EX allows you to search your deck for any card and
Shout
put
out
it
to
into your
Pidgeot.
hand. So the
Shout out
thing is that one
Pidgeot.
is you play 4 Charmanders, 1 Charmeleon, and then I think it's 4 Charizard EXs, and then you play 4 Rare Candy. So because you get that on, and when you evolve Charizard, you get to put 3 energy onto
goodness.
any Pokemon you want. So usually you put in 2 because his attack only costs 2 energy. And what it does
Hang on.
is
So do you get to get them from the deck or from the discard pile or
the
for the
deck.
hand?
From the deck. You go from the deck onto any cards you want to. So, and his does 180, and it scales for how many prize cards your opponent's taken.
Oh my goodness.
So,
does he have a color requirement to his attack, or is he a splashable boy?
I'm pretty sure it is colorless because you put fire energy. I think it might be he's a dark, but it might be fire energy that he needs because that's all you play in that deck is fire energy.
Oh, okay.
Maybe double turbo. Maybe double turbo energy.
And for the uninitiated, double turbo does.
It's 2 colorless, but then it takes, I believe, it's 20 points off your attack. So if your attack is usually 180, if you put double turbo, it's going to be 160 instead.
Incredible.
For those not in the know, because I'm definitely not, Charizard EX is a dark type monster with 330 HP. Terrad, right? That's his thing. Infernal Rain. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 basic fire energies and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like, then shuffle your deck. Burning Darkness, which is the attack that he was talking about, is 2 fire, even though he's a dark type monster. This attack does 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So it base is 180 and it does 30 more per.
Mike, you could probably answer this really well. It also has the weakness grass. At what point does this become like a one-hit KO to the majority of the field? Is Charizard's 330 indicative of other EX or are some weaker?
There are weaker EXs definitely. Like say the new Goldingo is 260.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and the new Roaring Moon is 230. Miraidon EX is 220. Chin-Pao EX is 220.
Okay, so after 2 or 3 prizes, this thing becomes the potential to just automatically knock out a Pokemon.
It becomes nasty, yeah. There are certain things like Bravery Charm, which will give any Pokemon you put it on an extra, I think it's, I want to say 30 HP.
Wow. Any restrictions on that?
No.
Wow.
Like the Roaring Moon EX uses the it's kind of like what if you play the VGC, your EXs have you can booster, the item is booster energy and that kind of stuff you can put on. There's 2 of them for the video game. There's one for ancient Pokemon, and there's one for future Pokemon. It's like ancient Pokemon would be like Roaring Moon, future would be like Iron Valiant. So, and those give you an extra, I want to say 60 HP, because Roaring Moon goes from 230 to 290 when you put it on him. So there's a lot of those kind of things. But yeah, Charizard can become an absolute monster if your opponent's taken 2 prize cards. He's doing over 200 and some odd points of damage per hit. So
of which he generates his own energy from the deck itself
yeah,
on
when he
evolution.
evolves. Yeah, when he evolves.
Incredible.
You get 3, so you can put 2 on him and 1 on somebody else. So
Very
that's
reminiscent of the Arceus from days past.
And a lot of people, play the Radiant Charizard at that deck as well, because its ability is for each prize card that your opponent's taken, it costs 1 less energy to do his attack, which his attack is 250. So
Jesus.
if you're getting down in the nitty gritty of the match and your opponent only has 1 prize card left, then it only takes 1 energy. Normally, I believe it's a 5 energies for the attack, but each time they take a prize card, the amount of energy it takes for that attack goes down. So, which is cool, but you got to wait for a while for that one. But it's a nice security blanket, I guess you'd say.
So the other deck that you were talking about was a Roaring Moon.
Yeah, Roaring Moon
what's
is
its deal?
nasty. It's
okay.
It's nasty. It's 3 energy for its attack. It's got 2 of them actually. One just KOs whatever's out there. You just hit it and it KOs it, but then you take 200 points of damage.
Oh, how much health does he have?
230.
Okay.
So, but the other one is if you discard the stadium in play, whether it be yours or your opponent's, it does 220 damage. So he's got 2 attacks. One that just can take anything out on the board, doesn't matter how many HP it's got, but then it does 200 points of damage to itself. Or if there's a stadium in play, you can just discard that stadium, and its other attack does anywhere from 100 to 220 points of damage. If you don't discard the stadium, it's 100. If you do discard it, it's 220. And there's
from a historical standpoint, a Pokemon that requires 2 specific energy and 3 in total have always been a little bit slower and a little bit thus less successful. Is there a dark type energy acceleration that's going on with this bad boy?
Yep, there's a Dark Patch for one.
Dark Patch is legal.
Yes.
Very fun.
There's the new Earthen Vessel, which allows you, when you play it, allows you to discard 1 card and draw up to 2 energy. And then there's a new trainer card. I can't remember, it's Professor something, which allows you play it, and I think you can get up to 2 energy, maybe even 3 2. I think it's 2 energy out of your hand and attach it to any Pokemon, and then draw 3 cards.
Oh goodness! So a supporter now accelerates energy for any color, or is it just for dark?
I believe, I'd have to go look. I believe it might be just for dark, but I won't swear to it.
Okay.
I'll look while you guys are talking.
So strategy with the Roaring Moon, I know this one because I've been playing it quite a bit, is you want to go second, and you play Squawkabilly, and that's the nice thing is Squawkabilly EX allows you to his ability allows you to discard your entire card hand and draw 6 fresh cards, but you can only do it on the first turn of your first turn. So that's one way to get energy into the discard pile.
For the listener, the card that Mike is talking about is Professor Sada's Vitality.
Yes.
You choose up to 2 of your ancient Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each. And if you did attach energy, you draw 3. So between this and Dark Patch, you could get 2 additional energy fairly easily. I believe Dark Patch is only through the bench, though.
Yeah. But the trick with this one is going second, and there are ways to be able to just hit with that attack the first turn, first turn.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So I believe this was the question, like how much energy it costs for Frenzied Gouging. It is 2 dark, 1 any, and Calamity Storm is 2 dark, 1 any. So it's capped at 3 energy.
Yeah, so
Which historically has always been mighty slow if you don't have a way to accelerate with either a Blastoise or this new Charizard EX. But it sounds like this new supporter card that's come out recently from Paradox Rift has really upped the ability. But it is only ancient Pokemon, so specifically
yeah.
Roaring Moon. And my
Well, there
goodness,
seems
the
like
ability to just knock out anybody.
there's Roaring Moon and Brute Bonnet, and but those aren't EXs. I mean, those are just uh, regular basic Pokemon. But there are more than just Roaring Moon as far as ancients. There's basically, if you've played Scarlet and Violet, all the Paradox Pokemon are in the new Paradox Rift. It's just, I believe Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon might be the only two EXs out of the new ones. I won't swear to it though, but
But no, specifically for this Roaring Moon like deck, Roaring Moon's
yeah,
the only ancient guy in there. Is
yeah,
that correct?
yes.
Okay.
And then you play things like Moltres V, which allows you, and you have Energy Switch too. So you have Moltres
Oh
V, which
goodness.
allows you to pull energy out of the discard pile, and if you play the Energy Switch, you can take it from Moltres V to the Roaring Moon.
Energy Switch, of course, being from 1996 and reprinted almost every set. Rare that you
Yeah.
see it doing so critical work in high
Roaring
level
Moon
play.
is very on the TCG Live is pretty heavy on there.
Sounds really strong.
It is, but again, there's always ways to counter everything. But it is a very strong deck. To be honest, that attack that just knocks out your Pokemon is cool. But if you look at the Giratina V-Star, it has the same thing. But I think you can only do that once. I think that's its ability.
Yeah,
I
and
won't
it's
swear
the
to it.
evolution part of the equation is
Yeah,
also a factor.
yeah.
Whereas the
But
Roaring Moon, it's a basic who can just, and you have a backup attack too. It's very impressive, very
yeah,
impressive
I'd have to
iteration
look
of
at.
Dark.
I'd have to start up the TCG Live and see what else is in that deck. Which I can do here real quick.
I have a quick question while you're doing that.
Go ahead.
Have you looked into Iron Hands for the TCG yet?
Yes, he actually is in a few decks. There's a Chin Pao deck that uses Iron Hands, as well as Miraidon. There's one of the Miraidon EX's decks uses Iron Hands. I'd have to look at the card again, but he's pretty. I mean, a lot of people think that he's made a lot of decks even better. I'm surprised that I don't see the Goldingo deck as being in the top 6 decks, because that is a nasty deck as well. Because for every basic Pokemon or every basic energy you discard, Goldingo does. I can't remember exactly what his.
50.
Yeah, for 50. So if you dump 6, you can do 250, or if you dump 7, you're doing 300. So he's and that's for one basic steel energy on him. Plus, he allows you, if he's in the active spot, he allows you to draw 2 cards, and if he's on the bench, he allows you to draw 1.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, he's nasty. Let's see here.
Go ahead, sorry.
In that Roaring Moon deck, at least the one that I'm using that I got from Zapdos TCG, you have a Lumineon, a Radiant Greninja, a Mew EX, the Moltres V. Who is that? The Morpeko, because he's got a 0 cost, or if there's any energy if he doesn't have any energy attached to him, he can retreat for free. So if you get stuck and you don't have anybody but him, you can put him up there and start, and then you can retreat him for nothing, as long as you don't put any energy on him. And then Squawkabilly EX. So yeah, you're running things like Cross Switcher, Battle VIP Pass, Dark Patch, the Earthen Vessel, Energy Switches, Nest Ball, Switch Carts, Ultra Balls, Trekking Shoes. Only 1 boss's orders, which is kind of interesting, but 2 Ionos, 4 of the Professors, and you're running 3 stadiums, I think. 4 stadiums, 2 Pokestops, a Poke Center, and a Collapse Stadium, and then of course 4 Steelstone and those Ancient Booster Energy Capsules for Roaring Moon. So yeah, it's a fun deck to play, and it's not as bad as the Mew Genesect was back in the day, where people see that you're playing that and they just concede, which was always kind of funny to me. I don't see a lot of conceding against anything anymore. But yeah, that's that one. Iron Valiant. Yeah, there's a lot of like the chilling, or I call it chilly hands in mine, which is the Chin Pao, who plays in Iron Hands. He does 160 for 2 lightning and 1 colorless. Or for 1 lightning and 3 colorless, he does 120. But if your opponent Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 1 more prize card. So Iron Hands is he's cool. I haven't seen anybody build a deck specifically around him yet, but he has been put into several decks.
One of the stream highlights that happened yesterday during VGC, as I was watching in my car during lunch, they highlighted a match from TCG where someone put him in Qian Pao, and because he was able to get like energy form consistently and was able to use him, he knocked out a Pidgey for 2 prizes, which is, I was like, oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because if you have Baxcalibur, you can, those colorless can just be water. So as long as you get 1 lightning on him and then you use Baxcalibur to put water onto him, yeah, he's nasty. But like I said, I haven't seen a deck built specifically around him with like more than just like, he's more of a supporter of something you throw in there to because like when you think about decks being, but you think about Chen Pao, you play multiple copies of Chen Pao in your deck, you play multiple copies of Roaring Moon or Iron Valiant or Gold Dingo.
Yeah.
But I've only seen decks with 1 copy of Iron Hands in it so far right now.
Historically, that's a really important role, is those one-off Pokemon that can swing an entire game for you.
Yeah,
definitely.
Honestly, like getting 2 prizes to knock out someone that does 120 damage. I can only imagine what it would be like to give it like Choice Belt to make it like 150.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of decks that are kind of making me sad. Like Ting Lu has kind of become irrelevant now because his ability doesn't affect EXs.
Same thing happened in VGC.
Yeah, he doesn't. His ability doesn't affect EXs. It only affects
Vs,
normal and Vs and V maxes and V stars. So he's still. I still enjoy playing that game, that deck, because it's kind of fun. Especially because like on TCG you have, you're climbing the battle pass, so you have certain things to daily quests you have to do, and sometimes I'll throw him on there just to get the daily quest done or something like that. But he was a fun deck when it was viable. It's not really viable anymore in competition, but yeah, the Goldingo uses I'm jumping around a lot, but you also have Scissor and Scyther in there as because Scyther's, his punishing Scissors does 10 plus this attack does 50 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon at play that has an ability on it. And most of the EXs and Vs and others have, and even basics, a lot of them have abilities. So if you're playing something that their bench is full of abilities, then you can just use Scissor as a single prize to go in there and start mopping things up. But yeah, Goldingo, and even Gimme Gold's, his attack with 1 colorless energy. Well, maybe it's steel. I can't tell. It's one he does. You flip coins until you hit tails, and this attack does 20 damage for each heads. So I actually used that for the first time earlier today, and knocked out I can't remember what he had up there, but I did 80 points of damage. So it's kind of cool. I mean, he can do a little bit of damage, but
it's always super valuable to have the Pokemon that your best Pokemon evolve from do some sort of utility, even if it's just survive bench sitter attacks that sometimes creep up in the formats.
Let me take a look and see, because I do have a Gardevoir EX deck built. I'm not sure if it's the same one that they're using.
If it's 30% of the field, I'm sure it's not. They're not all the same.
No, I doubt it. But it is.
I have 2 questions. One's kind of like, I'm not sure if they do this in TCG, but is Golden Go EX a basic Pokemon, or do they have Gimme Gold in the game too?
Gimme Gold is you have Gimme Gold, and then you have Goldingo. So Gimme Gold is your first stage, and I think Goldingo is a stage 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what they're doing with the EXs this round is they're making it true to whatever you are. So Charizard is a stage 2, Gardevoir is a stage 2, but Roaring Moon's a basic.
Right. That's what I figured, but I didn't know if they would add in Golden or like Gimme Gold, just because of the fact that like Golden Go is usually known as Golden Go. I mean, like Iron Valiant is a card that is given out to TCG live players now. If you haven't got it yet, I would claim it. I don't know the password.
Password is Paradox LAIC.
Yeah, do that. So grab it if you haven't. There's one for VGC as well. I don't know. I think it's like LAIC Phantom Ace, but like the ace is like a 4.
Yeah, because they don't allow A's or I's or O's. So it's actually LAIC with the 1, Phantom with the 0, and Ace with the 4.
That's for VGC. TCG, you can use all the letters and numbers.
Yeah, because that's TCG Live where you can put all of them. They're not sequenced differently. Anyway, but yeah, those are their prices that you can grab, and there's also Twitch drops. I haven't claimed any. I haven't really watched any on Twitch. I'm mostly just doing on the YouTube side of things, and I don't know that I'm missing stuff, but I think I'm okay. But the other question is, and this is more important because I'm trying to figure this out myself. How are people able to see the standings or players from RK9? Because every time that I try to go on there and see who's playing what, I'm not able to get that information. Is there like is that what you get for the spectators pass, or is that like a different thing that you get access to, or any ideas?
I have no clue on that one.
Because like I would think it would be really cool to see what everyone's kind of playing like day one, and I don't need to see the attacks, just to be able to see the pairings and who's playing what the matches are. Because there's a couple of people that I watch in VGC and some in TCG that I kind of want to see how their journey is going. So I thought it would be really interesting, but I can't figure out how to do that. So
it'd be interesting. So that's basically what I got on TCG from LAIC. I have several, like I said, I've said several times, I have a lot of decks that are built, and so anytime we wanted to, we could go over some of those as well.
Absolutely. But I think we're gonna go ahead. Sorry.
We're gonna Pidgeot.
Yeah, we're gonna Pidgeot to day one VGC and kind of discuss them for a little bit, and then we'll go into our we'll continue in with our topics, just because I think it would be interesting to get everyone's feedback on the day one's top 12. I think it'd be like I said, interesting to hear everyone's retrospects. So for top 12 Pokemon in LAIC day one, we have Fluttermane at 53.6%, Iron Hands at 51.3%, Landorus and the Sistarian at 37.4%, Urshifu, its Rapid Strike at 34.9%, Tornadus Incarnate Form, which is 29.2%, Heatran at 27.4%, Rillaboom at 26.2%, Arcanine, this is a Hisuian form, at 23.8%, Amoonguss at 23.3%, Chien-Pao at 22.6%, Roaring Moon at 18.2%, and coming up at the very end, Water Ogerpon at 17.7%.
Yeah, this is just the continuation of the trends of Regulation E. At Toronto is when Among Us really stepped back into a prominent role in the grass world. People really undervalue Spore until they get Spored and lose a set. But pretty much everyone else has been exactly as we've been seeing. The fall off of Ogerpon has been really interesting. I think the rise of things like Dragon Terrestrialization and people trying to hard counter this really popular Pokemon really killed its high usage, but not its usability.
And I don't think Dragon Terra is going to be that useful or resourceful anymore, because Fluttermane's coming back in usage now. It's now number 1 in Pokemon Home, and it's going to be in number 1 usage for at least a couple of more tournaments from here on out. I don't think, probably like in Regulation F, so next year it might drop, just because the new Pokemon are the new Pokemon, but I don't know if Dragon's the best one, unless you don't see Fluttermane in the back, in which, yay you.
Well, there are two things about that. The most common like high-level Dragon Terra right now seems to be Goldengo, who is not afraid whatsoever of Fluttermane and will KO it at the exact same speed. But you're also, in that matchup, you're Terrestrializing out of the Ghost weakness, so it creates a head game. And then in one of the other like bigger, higher profile cases, which is Kamo-O, you're immune to Shadow Ball via your ability of Bulletproof, but you're also resistant to the fairy attacks instead of being X4. But I'm sorry, that's wrong. What was a Steel Terra? Yeah, the like things like Goldengo don't mind, and frankly, the guys that you want to have with the steel terrestrialization are strictly for the Ogre Pond matchups. And if you see Fluttermane, you just don't use your Terra till you've knocked it out. Or you live with the sacrificing of that Pokemon for KOing and walling the Ogre Pond and deal with the repercussions of being weak to Fluttermane. But if you look at the rest of the top 12, the only one that threatens any real damage to a dragon are the bottom two guys of Chen Pao and Roaring Moon.
I would also say like Arcanine, but yeah.
Well, you resist the Flare Blitz and are neutral to the Rock Slide. But like you're resistant to Rillaboom stabs, you're resistant to half of Heatran, you're resistant to Urshifu, which is a pretty big get, and you're also resistant to the Wild Charge from Iron Hands.
For Terra Dragon or just Dragon in general?
Terra Dragon. So when we're talking about dragons, honestly, in my opinion, the big one right now is the Golden Go that James Beck famously made popular and has been just everywhere. Is you Terra Dragon and don't go with the boost to your steel attacks via the Steel Terra, and then you turn into being weak to fire and what's the other big one? Ground. You turn from that to resisting every Ogre Pond that exists, along with the Rapid Strike Urshifu. So because Steel isn't resistant to water, it's the other way around. Urshifu is a little bit of a threat to an Ogre Pond, or I'm sorry, to a Golden Go.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to check that is honestly worth more times than not the weakness to the Fluttermane, who is obviously still one of the main threats in the video games.
Yeah, she is. It's gonna be really, really hard to like I said, like dedicating Terra to Dragon. It's great, but if you see Fluttermane, you're less likely to use it. Even with Golden Go, Fluttermane will still knock you out with a Moonblast. I was able to survive Shadow Ball without being Terra'd, but it's one of those weird circumstances where if you try to Terra thinking that they didn't bring it in, but then all of a sudden you guess wrong, you're kind of like staring down a barrel of a Moonblast to the face. It's like, I don't really know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, certainly. You're on if it's a one-on-one fight. It's playing mind games though. Whereas if you were, let's say, the really old standard of the Steel Terra, you really only have the one mode. And if Fluttermane happens to be packing the Mystical Fire specifically for the Golden Go matchup, you're in even more trouble. But if you're a if in the open team sheet world, if you're a dragon, your opponent's going to look at that and wonder for a split second to use Shadow Ball for the super effective, or to try and guess you using your Terra Dragon and going for the Moonblast, which if you don't Terra means you resist. And when you start talking about things like choice spec locking, this can be a really important part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is those mind games.
Mind games are fun.
They are fun until you lose.
Well, that's why you play them, so that you get better.
That's true. Okay, so I think that's all that we have for LAIC, unless you guys want to add in anything more, because we could speculate like what like people do with their Pokemon, but it's probably better to watch or see other content creators kind of create their own thing. I would like to see what Aaron Zhang is gonna possibly bring out in the next couple of days, just because he's gonna probably release a video for this Team 1, the LAIC thing for his channel out soon-ish. So
yeah, I think that this podcast is very pro Aaron Zhang. He's one of the best out there as far as casting and content creating. So like definitely go to him for in-depth stuff and not so much us as far as like speculating top 12 guys. But the LAIC, good luck to everybody who's playing.
Yeah, good luck to everybody.
All right, so then we're going to go ahead and switch topics here. Let's go ahead and do the living decks and T-Tar. So, John, why don't you go ahead and get started with that?
Well, right during COVID, when they announced that they were going to bring all of the legends in the second DLC of Sword and Shield, I got really excited and back into Pokemon like more full time rather than playing any of the other games. And right before Generation 9 had come out, I really wanted to complete a full living dex prior to the generation coming out, and I kind of told myself that if I managed to pull it off, I would like seriously play the game in the ninth generation and try and like make worlds. Right, I think on the 9th of November, that the year that Scarlet and Violet came out last year, I got everything except for the mythicals, and I was led to believe that you unlocked Magernia, which is a steel fairy, really good Pokemon if you unlocked the rest of the Pokedex via Pokemon Home. And unfortunately, on the 9th, when I accomplished this, I did not get Magernia. And this is because you actually have to unlock it via beating the Sun and Moon Generation 7 games before they'll allow you to claim it in home. So effectively, once you beat those games, you get 2 mythicals. And at the time, I kind of just brushed it off and said that I would beat Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon when I had the chance. And then post the Portland Regional, I got really invested in trying to do that, but kind of like fell off of it pretty quickly because they announced during our hiatus that they would have 3 regionals here on the West Coast and that Hawaii would get a world championship. So instead of messing around with the Game Boy games and the other old games, I figured I'd just plug along playing this. And so after Sacramento and myself and Tyler had seen all of the cool ribbons, I decided that I would take a Pokemon from the Soul Silver era, specifically a Tyranitar that in Heart Gold and Soul Silver you can catch in a Safari Ball, which is a really rare Pokeball. It's one that you can't get in Scarlet and Violet, and it's kind of neat, and it's a camouflage kind of aesthetic that fits with a Tyranitar. So part of having that would be you would need to take that Pokemon into the 3D era. And so I had decided at that point that I would grab all of the champion ribbons from all of the games, and part of that is defeating the Alola Pokemon League, and thus unlocking Meganium. So after Sacramento, I spent literally 6 weeks just playing old games. I got tricked once because I thought that in Soul Silver you could get all of the Battle Frontier badges or ribbons rather by winning 50 games in a row, and so I built a Soul Silver BGC team and got to 24 and then realized that that was a lie. So I spent probably like 2 extra weeks doing that. But it's great, man. Having a completed living dex is something that now I've been trying to do for the last few years, and to have it finally done this past week was real special. I put the whole Julius Journey thing on Twitter, or X rather. So if you want to see any of the cool pictures, you can check that out
X.
there. Yeah, over on X, including Julius the Tyranitar in my copy of Sword and Shield, or Scarlet and Violet. So I play on the online ladder with it right now. I jumped up from like the beginning of Ultra Ball to the top 10,000 in like the first day. I had a pretty cool team built around it, and because it's close team sheets, you honestly right now expect a Psychic Tyranitar. So when the fairy one comes out, it gets a lot of sneaky KOs. I'm excited to try it out at like locals when you can actually see before the game what's what.
And
All right,
Jay,
so
where can they find you on Twitter or X?
I'm at Ace Trainer JT. I post only Pokemon content, so like it's not every day, and it's not even like consistent. But when there's something cool to put up there, I put it up there.
all of this information can be found in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube, and on Spotify, I think it's in the description there as well.
Yeah. And it also included me playing Pokemon Go during Go Fest this past year to grab a Pokemon that was only distributed 10 years ago. And now if you didn't get it on Go this past year, you might have to wait another 10 years. So that was pretty cool.
Which one was that?
Diancie.
Oh, yes.
Rock fairy.
Yeah, Pokemon I'm probably never going to have living decks for.
So you got 9 more years to go if it's only once every 10 years.
It's just, I just have to compare it as the Stanley Parable, achievement. I can't play the game for 7 years. I can't get that Pokemon every 10 years. That's... All right. So do we have any questions for John of like how the journey was getting it from like Soul Silver up to the Switch era, or is there anything that you found out during your...
I'll say just one more thing before a question. only one game was cleared, so he didn't listen the whole 6 weeks.
That's what I was gonna ask. How many games did you have to clear with a guy that didn't listen?
All of them. So I had Alpha Sapphire had the 8th badge. So
Okay.
like I immediately ran through the Elite Four, no problem. He came out of Soul Silver at level 85. So in Kalos, I just pushed A. He died on the first gym because Infestation does percentage residual, and it does more if you're super affected by bug.
Oh
Ooh.
no!
Yeah. So that was fun because that copy was right before the first gym and it had deleted its starter. So Julius was my best guy by a mile.
Oh, that's funny though. That's hilarious.
Yeah, unfortunately, I picked up a lot of these games right during COVID and erased all the files so that I could nuzlocke. And this was before it was really common knowledge that nuzlockers actually just generate rare candies and rare candy to below the next gym leader to make it like actually fair and not have 8 hours of grinding. So when I failed like my 5th nuzlocke, I learned the truth and stopped doing that.
Yeah, I was kind of like disheartened when I found that out too, and it's like, are you serious? Like the whole point of doing a Nuzlocke is putting a challenge in front of you, and you having to work with the challenge, and you're like, no, I'm just gonna generate a bunch of like rare candies now and just get to where I need to be to make it.
I respect that you don't overtrain the guy because when I nuzlocked, I would overtrain by a couple of levels and take advantage of that. So in that respect, I do respect it, but it's a fun thing that a guy started 10 years ago in a comic. We should definitely not take it as seriously as some of the community does.
But like, it just makes it like, because there's a couple of creators that I do watch, and I won't name them. I still watch their videos, but now that I know that it's kind of like learning a magic trick. You see the magic trick before the smoke and mirrors, and then when you peer through the mirror and you realize that there's a guy behind there with a dove going, woof, it just like completely shows you the magic trick. You're like, oh well, this great feat that I thought you had, it's not as great as I thought it was, because the fact that I know the magic trick, and it's like,
Yeah, once you know how the magic trick is done, the magic is gone.
yeah.
I will propose this. With rare candies, you don't get effort values. So those Pokemon are like basically base stat totals, which is fairly interesting. Like if you were to train Pidgey and get I believe it's a special defense bump every time, you have like a different thing. But yeah, I completely agree. It's like a magic trick.
It's like the best comparison that I can make, just because of the fact that, like, again, once you know what the magic is gone. Your wonder of like, oh, how did that do it is gone. And it's like, well, if the Nuzlocke is that hard to where you can't perform it, then it's like, then maybe not doing Nuzlocke content is probably the best, because like the whole point of doing a Nuzlocke is that you have rules that you set upon yourself, and then you're like, okay, well, now I don't want to do this because it takes too long. Like, well, then that defeats.
That's an interesting adjustment to the rules because these all are self-imposed. I've cleared one, but I got beat pretty hard by Misty in Soul Silver when I did the last Nuzlocke I did. So like it made it way more entertaining, and like for individuals, it is a good way to like have a new relationship with the game.
But then there's
I
like,
didn't mean to.
and then you have like the randomizer Nuzlocke, which good
Those are
luck. Like,
Those are
oh,
fun.
Pokemon randomly evolve when they do, and it's like the random attacks, random abilities. And it's like you can't prepare for anything. It's like, oh, I'm gonna fight Giovanni, who I know who has Eradicate, and it's like, oh, here's Deoxys, fight that. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So besides, sorry, go ahead.
It's probably one of my favorite parts of the fandom is because it was worldwide. So many different perspectives have come alive, and things like Nuzlocks are born. Like it all started with some internet guy who was like, "This time I'm gonna nickname my guys and release them if they get KO'd once." And it's evolved into, honestly, there's at least 10 that I know of people that like stream Nuzlocks. So it's such a cool part of the hobby.
And I don't disagree with that. It is a really cool like challenge. It's something that I physically will not do just because of the fact that I would lose so fast and I would have to restart. And because
No.
I don't like creating nicknames for my Pokemon, it becomes very, very hard for me to do the challenge, right? Like it does.
Boring.
It gets really, really hard for me to do the challenge. So it's like I don't attempt it because I know that I'm going to fail. And I don't want to get like 4 badges in and then fail just because of a technicality. To me, that kind of sucks. And I get it. I do like the challenge. It's just as soon as I found out that a lot of the people, get rare candies to level up their Pokemon because they don't want to spend the next 8 or 10 hours leveling up their Pokemon, it kind of defeats the purpose in my eyes.
Boring.
Yeah, but he's saying like you got to catch 20 to 30 Pokemon in a run, and coming up with 20 or 30 nicknames. Listener, definitely,
Listen,
I'm in. Compel Matt to try one.
I got them for you, Matt.
Something fun.
Pick a theme.
I've got all the nicknames for you. You ready?
Oh,
Boring.
God.
Bori 1, Bori 2, Bori 3, Bori 4. See, it's not that hard.
No, Bori 17.
That happened, Bye.
like George Foreman, naming all his kids George.
Right.
No, it's like I said, I don't really do the challenge just because of the fact that like I am too tempted of breaking the rules myself, and even if I were to complete it, I don't know if I would feel complete if I did it, just because of the fact that like especially if you try to do it in Gen 8, where trying to catch one Pokemon in each area of like the wild area is incredibly hard. And not only that, but I could pick whatever I want. It's like, oh man, like this is it. I think for Gen 8 and further, or at least, is it Gen 8? The new Silver and Diamond game, Shining, anyway, the new Diamond Pearl game. Since you can see the Pokemon in the overworld, I think those ones have to do like a wonder trade, just so that you catch a Pokemon in there and then you immediately wonder trade it off, and that's what you get. Like, okay, that's the Pokemon I caught. That's what I have to use.
Yeah, I think that's why most Nuzlocks are considered for like the Game Boy era, and the randomizer is random encounter kind of things.
Yeah,
Because obviously what we're talking about is a thing that is a fan-driven part of the fandom. So certainly there's got to be a set of rules somewhere for the Switch era where everything is on the overworld. But this started and has mostly been about the Game Boy Pixel era, not the 3D Switch era.
yeah, for sure. And like the one thing that I dislike about Nuzlocke the most, when you have like the random thing, is that if you come across a legendary and then you only have a Pokeball to try to catch it, you're like, bro.
Skill issue.
Premier Ball, get him. And then it's just like, no.
If you're listening out there, listener, check out the U.S. President AI does a Nuzlocke. It's very funny.
Dude, I love that everyone's doing like president, like AI talking to different games nowadays. It's so funny.
The best. It's the best.
I got recently addicted to this content creator. I don't remember his name, but he does AI presidents for Master Duel. And he has like this whole battle series. So like we now have it's not Voltron. Ultron, that's it. He like played against Ben Shapiro and like is doing like this whole villain arc thing where if he wins, he like shocks you to where you're unconscious, but you're not dead. You're just like in a coma until he gets defeated. It's like real life Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's not Yu-Gi-Oh. It's
real life.
Yeah, or real life. It's like the whole reason why this tournament started is because Obama beat Trump and he said his deck sucks. It's so funny, and I enjoy watching that so much. It's great. All right, does anyone have any questions for John before we move on?
I guess not.
I guess not. All right, I will ask one question. Besides Julius not listening to you, did you have any other difficult parts in the game at all?
Well, unfortunately, because to defeat Red, you had to be in like the mid 80s. So basically, every game that he got traded to from that, nothing in the game could even challenge it because canonically, Red's Pikachu is the highest level Pokemon in existence at 88. So like once you are able to smack around the 80s, uh, Route 1 isn't going to challenge you anymore. So like the big things were pushing A for like 15 minutes to clear 1 or 2 battles because like he's not going to notice, he falls asleep, he wakes up and hurts himself. So like a lot of the time was spent doing other things while just pushing at the button A. I will say that after Gen 5, you don't really have to pay attention anymore because the Pokemon Company had that string of games where the UI would tell you where to go almost all the time and would really help guide you.
Yeah.
Ultra Moon was the best for this because they'll even take it a step further and transport you to the next part of the story if you want. So
That's
it's
dope.
real smooth. Yeah. It was really poorly received at the time because at the time, it's considered handholdy and nobody wanted it. But going back, several years later and playing it, it made it where I didn't have to really pay that much attention, which is not a commending statement, I suppose, for a game story.
At least it's better than Gen 8 where Hop is like, hey, come over here. Hey, come over here. Hey, you see me?
Yeah, that's the Sun and Moon era as well, which was super nice for just playing the game. But Kalos was pretty good about it as well. Cause I don't remember what the mechanic was anymore for guiding you, but five was tough because in the black and white era, it's one of those last like edgy kind of games where they want you to get lost.
I mean, that's fair. Like, I got lost in Ruby for like a long time because I had played it for like 3 days straight, got very far, and then was like, all right, I'm going to put this down. And it realized it was like 2 years later. And I'm like, where do I go?
I think Tyler had that happen to him in like one of the Gen 4 games too.
Man, yeah, platinum, twice in platinum actually, and it was really painful. I had to go all the way back to the beginning of the game and play the game, and and then I missed like one house that I spent hours and hours looking for by the end of it, and I was like, this is what I missed, and then I ran through the rest of the game, and I was like so disappointed in myself. But you put one of those games down, especially the platinum, and what was the other one?
Pearl and Diamond, the Gen 4 era.
Pearl, diamond, and platinum. Yeah, brutal.
Yeah, they were pretty brutal.
I love this game.
All right, we're gonna go.
Rest in peace, Prince.
All right, we're gonna go over to the next topic here. Locals 2023. Why we haven't been going and what we intend to do for the rest of the season.
Yeah, why haven't you been going, Jay?
Man, Saturday 5 p.m. for me is tough. I go to sleep pretty early, so like the times that we haven't gotten out of there earlier than like 9 or 10, and so
Which is
that's
rough.
a big distraction. I would also say as a Monday through Friday like corporate kind of guy, Saturday night is such a precious thing that like everybody that in my life wants it because it's one of the few days that I have to really spend time with people. I would say for the remainder of this year, I'll be going now that I finally got my Pokemon out of the Game Boy era and into the Switch era. I can start playing teams with it and stuff, so I'm much more incentivized to want to do that because I'll be taking that Tyranitar to the Portland Regional. But also, the new regulation is in about 2 months, and the new DLC is in a month. So as far as like if you have an off season in the world of Pokemon, these are them. So I kind of have been valuing that time as well, so I haven't been pushing it.
That's fair. I know for me, I have been working way too much. So I had a birthday, 3 overtime days, and tournaments that is not of Pokemon or of editing or stuff like that. So sometimes when we would go plan to go to locals, we were just busy. And then when the Worlds happened, there was no events planned, so no CP was being given out. So everyone started playing for money. So I kind of lost incentive of playing for money. I go there to play and, mingle with the community. And some people come in and like, I just want to make like an extra $50 just because I know I could beat these scrubs. That's a hyperbole. Like, guys out there, like, that's not actually what they do. Probably.
How dare you,
I've
sir.
known a guy like that before.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I see it
Certainly.
all the
I know
time in the
his
pool
career
hall
well.
where they're like, dude, I could beat you, put $100 down. I'm like, no. And like, that's the reason why I haven't gone. It's mainly because other things have like told me I couldn't go. Like, the Portland Regional is in the same date that I'm supposed to have our company banquet. Everyone's supposed to go to a party. We're supposed to dress down in formal wear and mingle with everyone that works for the company. Well, I can't because the Portland Regional is the same time, and I don't want to show everyone up in a tux, so I'm not gonna go.
This is true. This is true.
What? You don't have a +3? That's weird. I'm just saying. You get a +3, everyone shows up beforehand and then hit the regionals afterward, or hit the regionals and then the party. Come on.
Well,
That's just me.
if it's anything how last year's regionals went for John and I, we didn't leave until like 8:00.
Yeah,
That's true. Winners are gonna win.
That was Sacramento as well.
It was. Still, you'd be in a tux. I'm down for that.
I'd show up in a tux, like I'd be the gentleman. That's my cosplay for the tournament, and then go to a party.
Yo, I'll fix my Eevee costume. I'll be the gentleman's Eevee.
Just don't give me a leash and collar. That'd be weird.
No,
I would just give you the leash. I would wear the collar, obviously.
Obviously.
Oh my god.
Listen, that's a way to put us on the map. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, I'm thinking ahead. I do have a question. Have you explained what you nickname your Pokemon after? Like especially this Julius Tyranitar.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
I pick like people names like people give to their dogs and their cats and stuff. So like it's always
Was
very
there
PG.
There was no inspiration behind Julius. It was just you were just like, yeah, that's a good name for a Tyranitar. Has he developed a personality? Does he? I mean, now he talks back and he don't listen in some fights. So like he went through that awkward teenage phase.
If you check out on X, he does have the characteristic quick-tempered, which is very fun. A lot of times I like to do alliteration, so like Anita the Annihilate, Draymond the Dragonite. But when I was considering for Tyranitar, I definitely didn't want a T. I wanted Julius. He reminds me a lot of like Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction kind of vibes.
So no Thaddeus.
I have a Thaddeus in the game. I nickname just about everybody like that. I enjoy having a fun name that like I have Francisco the Farigiraffe. So like I enjoy that kind of stuff. I'm big on aesthetics in the Pokemon world. But
definitely.
I'm not.
Boring.
John over here, he is like a name brand like honey. That's what he's like. Hey, is that name brand? Hand that over here. I need some. Wait, where'd you get that badge from? Wait, okay, I'm just gonna start from the very beginning of every single video game to get the badge I want. That's The
only thing that I'm not big on is shiny. Like that's never been my vibe. But basically every other aesthetic that you manipulate in the game, I've always been a big fan of.
Shiny too easy for you?
No, I honestly a lot of Pokemon I prefer their original color palette. I think a lot of them missed the mark, and so like specifically Fluttermane, I'm not a big fan of the green one. I don't think Iron Hands looks better as the shiny. But they look different, and I respect people's like desire to have them. It's just never been something that my aesthetic has leaned to. I'm more interested in the ball, the ribbons and the marks, the nicknaming. I'm more into that stuff.
Dude, shiny Iron Hands looks like he came off the press without any hot paint. It's like when you order something and it's not done correctly, and it's like, oh man, this toy order is not even colored.
I will say the differentiator in shiny that was introduced in 8 was really cool. Like you have the stars and now you have the diamond.
Yeah.
shiny. That's a really cool iteration of it.
That is a really cool iteration of it. Like, and to go with John's thing, like there's some shinies that just don't work in my opinion. Garchomp shiny is not great, but Gibbles is amazing. Gabites, it gets a pass, but like when you compare like Iron Hands and like Milotic is beautiful, and I have her shiny. It's like, yes, like, well, I want that. And some people like having that swag, but it's just like, no, I'm okay. I don't know. Some of them just look terrible and need more
Dragonite
effort.
is probably the worst offender, going from the really cool pink Dratini and Dragonair into the green Dragonite. It was not something that I don't know a single person who appreciates it more outside of the shiny value.
Yeah, like I appreciate like the pink Dratini and like the cool looking Dragonair, but the worst offender of all is freaking Diglett. Man, I'm a shiny with a blue freaking nose. Are you kidding me? That's it. That's the only thing that's shiny on him is his nose.
Well, sometimes that's the nose or the eyes is the only difference.
Which Pokemon?
Diglett. I mean, even like Mousehold. The only time you know it's a shiny is that instead of it having like a slightly blue shirt or clothing, it's now yellow. That's it. That's the only change.
When it comes out, you get the stars or the diamond aura. I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, still.
I mean, Screamtail. I mean, the really only way you could tell Screamtail is his eyes are different. I mean, he's a slightly different shade, but if you put the two together, if you're just walking around, you wouldn't notice it.
No, you wouldn't, and I barely noticed it too. Ceruledge is kind of like the same way. Ceruledge and Armarouge, like their only shiny is the eye color.
So, I mean.
But we're not here to talk about how lazy people can be with design.
Wow.
But some shinies like Milotic is again beautiful coloring. Love that shiny. Umbreon, even though it's just a different shade of like where the outlines are, still beautiful coloring. And there's other Pokemon that do it extremely well. Black Charizard for one, like he's one of my favorite shinies. Rillaboom when he comes out shiny is pretty dope looking. I think who's the other? I think it's like Glaceon. I think he's got like a really cool shiny variant, and like Vaporeon too. Like those two have like really cool shinies. Gengar he's pretty cool shiny.
Only as the Mega. He's unfortunately one of the subtle changes in shiny in the regular form.
Yeah, that's true. And didn't he get like a no? It's not Dynamax. I mean, he did.
Yeah, he was different Gigantamax as well.
Okay.
And it was just like the Mega. It was the white, but when you throw out a shiny Gengar, it's black instead of purple.
Yeah.
It's a pretty subtle one.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
But other than that, like they do make really cool shiny Pokemon, and I do appreciate it when people do use it. I am less likely to be like, oh, that person, hacked their gens now, just because like the shinies are common now.
Yeah, you were definitely a guy that I would hear at least twice a week. They definitely hacked this.
Absolutely, absolutely. For the track record that we went through since our Pokemon adventure, every time someone brought in a shiny, like it was instantly suspicious. Now everyone has full teams. Like, okay, like it's fine. It's a way easier to get shiny Pokemon today than it was like 3 generations ago, where you had to wait on the odds of like 6,000, like 1 in every 7,000 or something like that. Like that was a lot harder to get shinies than it is today. Like now you create a sandwich to get a shiny, and that's way easier than, breeding with a 5 IV perfect Ditto and hoping that a shiny hatches from the egg.
Yeah, the Masuda method was the king all the way until the Switch era, which I mean is super cool. It's really all it means is if you qualified for a world championship, you were way likely to always have a really good foreign Ditto because you just swap with somebody that you met there from like Sweden or Japan or wherever.
Yeah.
But for people like us that were Pokemon enjoyers, certainly, but not to the level of like competing, it made it really almost impossible feeling to get things like foreign Dittos or shiny Pokemon, high IV legendaries, things like that.
It was super hard. Like I remember the GTS when I think when Bank first came out, when we were like trading and we had to go onto forums and like advertise like, hey, we got this, I'm looking for this, and like talk in DMs and stuff like that. I remember like we got our first foreign dittos from a guy that you spoke to, JT.
It was
and
big. I was big in the message board era.
Yeah.
Because that was when the balls, the special balls, were like really rare and thus really coveted.
Yeah, and I think you were trading like Pokemon for balls and had, I think you even had some of mine.
He traded for a foreign ditto from a guy who was on this dark alley out of the back of the guy's 1967 Riviera.
I mean, it said free Pokemon on the side.
See,
so
you go.
I win.
I was gonna make the same reference. So it was really interesting how we got stuff back in the day, and I'm glad that we've shifted away from that. I'm glad in Gen 8 they made it a lot easier to become VGC compliant and be on a equal footing than the people that, I don't want to say took nefarious means, because it's very easy to do, but it's something that I don't particularly subscribe to. So if they took that route, that's good for them. I wanted to prove my way of doing things by actually doing it and not having to rely on, that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, we didn't go to anything like big for the longest time. We were definitely like on the spectrum of enjoyers, like casual enjoyers.
Oh yeah. And like the times that you and I tried to go, we ended up finding a couple people that had a one special Pokemon all the time. So that became it really disheartening to like, oh, we're second round in, and our locals way back in the day, this is like X and Y, and we left because we were running up against people that had literally got Pokemon that were perfect, no matter how we would try to even figure out how to do that. And it would make it really, really hard for us to be able to compete with the people there at locals. And then
the fact that JT had to leave due to a bowel problem one time.
Oh no, that was Sun and Moon. That was way later. That was like 3 gens later. Yeah, and locals wasn't what it is in this current era. It was more like you just play for the fun. There were no like championship points given out.
True.
There was no like prizing. It was, and that's really what at the end of the day is what made us casual enjoyers, because like other games that we played were the return on it was very high, and we were performing really well. So like we definitely were not like, especially if you compare it to where we've been at even during the Switch era, like it's night and day. And it's because in the Naruto and Dragon Ball Z eras, for us, we were like winning boxes and playmats every week. So like why put that effort into the Pokemon, especially when frankly you and I didn't really understand the what's what like we do now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to prizing for Pokemon, back in the day, there wasn't like hardly any. And you had to really compete at these regional tournaments. I remember the last time I went, besides last year, the last one that I went to, I played TCG, and JT and Tony played VGC. And Tony kept having a judge called on him because of his Hydreigon. Game, for some reason, said, oh, you can't have this Pokemon because it evolves at 55, even though this is synced down to 50. And he knew an egg move that people said he doesn't learn this. And after
frankly, that was Tony not making his own team, and then and because of that not having the confidence to like speak on it when he was like talked to about it.
Right, but still, like every round having a judge called on him, I would get annoyed after the third round. Like,
sure,
that's understandable, wouldn't you think? Even if Tony didn't build his team, like you and I built his team, so we were confident in his abilities, and Tony is not a bad trainer. Like today, I still want to fight Tony. I think he is a really good Pokemon trainer. He just doesn't have the want or the drive to battle as much as I do. Like he was gonna bring in a team when our friend tournament. He was gonna bring in an ice team that swamped me in the tournament, like, or just on basic league play. So I obviously know that he has a level of skill to do really, really well. He just doesn't want to. And
yeah, for sure. I'm not saying he didn't have skill in that. I'm saying because he didn't make his own team, like you can get steamrolled pretty easily because you weren't the one to do it, so you couldn't explain your work. Just like if your buddy helped you on a math test and you couldn't show your work, you don't have the confidence to, when you're talked to about it, speak on it like that. But like, the harsh reality is none of us were doing remotely well enough to get prizing, because in that era you had to be in the top 4 of the entire tournament to like get
yeah,
anything.
true.
Like they've super scaled up the prizing in this generation, this year, but in the Switch era as a whole, since Sword and Shield, they've incredibly revamped their output.
Oh yeah, and for the people out there, take this in mind, or keep this in mind when this tournament was back in like Plasma Freeze. Like I ran around with a deck that locked people out of using Pokemon abilities, Pokemon and items, and using their bench. I was that Sigilyph player that went 3-3 because it wasn't that there wasn't a whole lot of players back then. Like there was still a lot, but not so many rounds as they are today. And while JT and Tony, I want to say you guys ended at 3-3 as well.
No.
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 Oh well.
No, lower, my man.
Oh well. I know that when they played, they didn't have to pay any money to play. I had to pay money to play TCG. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna go VGC. It's the only reason why I'm playing VGC now. Because like at that time, they didn't pay money. I pay money now, which is, it's great because the prize money is like pretty much what I would be making in 3 months if I won the tournament all the way around, which is amazing. Great.
Also allows for like an actual venue. Like in the Kalos era, it was like that not so good convention center with bare minimum stuff put in, and now there are 3 streaming things. There's like 9 casters for each different game.
Yes.
There's side events. It's a totally different animal.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to like a music festival or like Ren Fair, where you walk in and you see a bunch of people like performing and getting into character, staying into character for most part, and you're all having a good time.
Shout out to the bug catcher.
Yeah,
Sacramento.
Like everyone's having like a good time, enjoying themselves, and obviously people are there for a tournament. It's like when I go to pool, 2 months or 2 times a year, there are 2 Chinook Winds tournaments here in Oregon, and I planned on going to both of them. I didn't. Obviously, my team fell through, but for 3 or 4 years, I went to every single one. I planned my life around these tournaments to make sure that I was able to go, afford the trip, and be able to do well. And they're still high on my priority list, but they're not as high because I do plan on doing way more in Pokemon than I do and playing in the APA. So there should dedication's there.
Yeah, you really need to be dedicated to do well in this hobby for sure.
Yeah.
And even if you are, you might not do well still. Tough game.
It's a very tough game. I thought I played against Eric Rios like a couple of days back, and I found out that I did not. I did not. I thought I did.
Shout out Eric Rios.
Yeah, seriously. He's such a good player. He was on match number 2 for day 1 of the LAIC. Such a good match to watch. Like those guys like are a completely different level, it feels.
Yeah. It's the craziest part because you and I have kind of jumped from the casual enjoyer to the competent, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so to see the levels to that game where like past competent and to these elite kind of plays, it's really been fun and humbling, honestly, because as a Pokemon enjoyer, I definitely know more about Pokemon than 90% of the global population. But when you get to these high events and you watch the stream and you see high level plays like using a Draco Meteor into the Fairy Terra Arcanine on the knowledge that he's likely to switch out because he's locked into a poor move, is just, it gets your heart pumping, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler, have you gone to locals this year at all?
Yeah, I was supposed to go a couple weeks back, but just couldn't get my act together.
Are you gonna go
But
today?
I got a kid. I got a kid, man.
That's
Yeah, right. I'm having a crazy sleepover.
fair.
Uh-huh.
No, I totally get that. There are many dads out there. Like I used to be a dad myself, so I get it. When you become really really busy raising children, I wish Mike would go to locals. I think it would be kind of fun, even if we had to go down to like locals to in Kaiser or Salem. I think it would be really really fun. I was like, Mike, come
That's what this
down. Said
podcast is. It's
Nudge,
a
nudge,
way
wink,
to
wink.
pressure people into playing Pokemon VGC to
Uh-huh.
endure the torture that May and Matt and everyone else goes through.
As the Duke of Ormond, I will not sully myself with peasants.
Here's an honest question for you, Mike.
Oh God.
Have you?
Honest questions?
Yeah, here's an honest question for you. Have you thought about playing Go and actually competing in those fights?
No, I haven't. I haven't even touched Go, and
What would your thought be about actually doing that?
I just don't have any desire to do competitive anything. To be honest with you, I don't have any desire to be in some place with, for one, that many people. Even if it's not that many people, I'm out of my comfort zone.
It's still a lot of
Okay.
people. Like that's like I agree with you there. Like even last year there was a crap ton of people.
I get if it was something that I was really passionate about, it'd probably be something that I would force myself to do. Kind of like comic book conventions. I'm passionate about that, so I force myself to go to those.
Yeah.
Even though I'll spend hundreds of dollars on tickets, and the day before I'm still telling myself I'm not gonna go, and then I get up the next morning and I force myself to get in the car and drive up there, and I have a good time, but I'm not passionate about Pokemon the way that you guys are. I mean, you guys are passionate about it. You're spending hours of your life, days. I mean, a lot of time on these things. So that's passion. That's something I don't have. So I have no desire to do anything competitive. That doesn't mean that I might not come for spectators, but again, that's a lot of people for me to be around. That's something that I'm not gung ho passionate about. So sorry, all of you Pokemon
don't.
folks that listen, for me saying that I'm not passionate about this, and yet here I am on the podcast about Pokemon. I play
Don't.
casually, and it's mainly TCG Live is where I get my fun in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
don't.
if they ever did tournaments on TCG Live where you could sit in your own house and and do it, I might think about that. Might be kind of cool.
There
But
is. It's all
it's just,
grassroots though.
but I'm just saying, like, if there's, if they ever added TCG Live to Worlds, that might be something that I thought about. But again, it's not me going, yeah, this is something I want to do, and I'm going to dedicate a lot of time and that stuff. Because, I mean, the most time I dedicate to Pokemon is I'll hop on YouTube and see if there are any new cool decks to try out from Zapdos TCG or Little Dark Fury, and if there are, I'll build them and go out and play them on the ladder. But a lot of stuff is, I mean, you're not seeing the same decks literally that go to these LAICs or NAICs or these major tournaments or regionals. You're not seeing those same decks on TCG Live because I don't know. I was Little Dark Fury was talking about the fact that there's just they're not it's kind of hard to judge your deck and how well it's going to be against other decks because there's just so much diversity on TCG Live that you're not most likely going to be playing against decks that you would see in the ladder, and decks that might be on the ladder have weird one-offs thrown in there that just kind of, for some reason, like, we don't understand why this card is in this deck. It doesn't, but it is because people like to try and experiment and that kind of stuff on there. So,
Well, there's no risk. There's no risk to
No.
doing it on the ladder on the cartridge or TCG Live, but if you have to pay the money and sit down for 9 rounds, you're going to be a lot more uniform in your thinking because you
Yeah.
want to do well. You're not just like trying to throw something against the wall.
For sure.
Which is a lot of what you get on TCG Lives. People just throwing on
And
some stuff on the wall, see how it sticks.
It's a lot of what you're getting on the cartridge as well. If you play on the ranked ladder, or if you play Showdown, like that's definitely consistent with all the other games as well. It's
Yeah.
because you have to not only pay the money and your Saturday or your Sunday, but you have to sit down for like as many as 9 rounds to play, and like you're trying to win, so you're way more inclined and incentivized to like play things that you know are good rather than, I love Charizard and I love Pikachu, so let me play them together.
Yeah. It's not like the animated series where the little girl finds her mom's old Pokemon cards and I'm gonna play with Oddish now, and it's like that's not how the game is ran today. I
I
wish
love that. I love that series so much.
it's a great series. I wish it was honestly like that, but they've power creeped the game to be something that it's not like that, which is unfortunate.
What is when you're all 9 and nobody has EX or like any of the good cards.
Yeah.
But
But like
the
but I
cliffhanger was, can you do it in regionals? I haven't seen Anish play at the regional yet, but I bet she does not do good.
I think she wins. I think. I haven't seen that episode
Yes.
either.
I didn't think it was out yet. I'm gonna go look for it after this cast.
Yeah, I think she wins in the regional because I think that one girl who bullies her in like episode 2 says, you won't beat me, and he tells her about the regional or the guy that got her in the club. But I think that's out now. I think she went all the way up to Worlds, but I'm not sure if she
Awesome.
won.
Awesome.
But as you were saying
I
before,
won.
Mike, don't ever apologize because of large crowds.
Well, no, it's just I was apologizing to our 2 listeners that
I hate when you guys say that. We do have more.
I
I hate
We
I'm
haven't
it.
sure
seen
we
them.
do. I'm sure we do. I'm
We
sure
haven't met them.
we do.
They're not
Yeah,
real. We haven't met them.
I haven't seen a lot of
We've met
comments.
2 of them.
Y'all
But,
right. Y'all
What do you mean? Tyler's right here.
Yeah, that's one.
That's one
My
listener.
mommy. My
And
mommy is
that's
number 2.
There's 2. So,
Yeah, that's our
but
2 listeners.
but I just the fact that I'm not as passionate about it as you guys are. That's what I was apologizing for. Is that I'm just because I won't have all this wonderful knowledge and information to pass around. But I just
Say that, but the first 20 minutes was definitely your masterclass.
That's true.
I play because you guys play, and it's a way for me to spend time with you guys and that kind of stuff. But if you guys didn't play, I wouldn't play.
Ricky Bobby, I do not play the TCG game. You don't put that
No,
evil
but you
on me.
play, putting it right on you. You play Pokemon, and that's what I'm saying. Is if you guys weren't into Pokemon, I probably wouldn't give it a second thought. But it's a way for us to spend time together and hang out. So even though I got to,
Can anyone play Unite anymore?
I do get burned out on. I haven't played Unite since we did our podcast on Unite. So
play when you hit me up. That's when I play. Is when you hit me up and I get you some dubs.
All right, slide into my DMs.
I'm in.
Since I am a later bird, not as much. I don't play Unite as much. I want to play more, but I have to, like, a lot of my time is scheduled up pretty evenly. I think you guys said it before we started, is that I'm a pretty busy guy. So I try to stay ahead on like content creation. That frees up a lot of time, which is why I have a lot of free time today, because I have to record a ton of content before it ever comes out to the channel. But a lot of the time I'm sitting here just like editing. Like today's episode hopefully will not take me 6 days, but
it's going to take you 6 days. It's going to take
what took me so long last episode is when I got hyper fixated. Well, yeah, part of that is I got hyper fixated on Monster Hunter World, and then I started editing the podcast, and I started doing something a little bit differently, and I'm hoping that it really reflects in today's episode when it comes out on the channel.
I'm sure it will.
But I believe that because of the changes that I want to implement, I have to get footage for other different like projects that I'm currently working on. That I'm hoping that it all pays in dividends in the end, which is why I'm like constantly doing something, constantly like trying to create something, and I'm hoping that it like I said, pays well at the end. We're gonna go ahead and switch to our last topic, unless you guys have any more questions about locals and what we're currently talking about.
I just want to say to our listeners that peasant is a form of endearment for me.
You're gonna have to listen so deep to find that compliment.
So
We're
when
on
I call you
episode
peasants,
5.
it means I love you all,
And
my peasants.
He's like, he loves you all as much as a duke does when it's tax time.
It's true. Yep. And nobody's paying taxes. Son of a bitches. Son of a biscuits.
All right, so we're gonna switch over to the spotlight hour. What I'm gonna
Oh,
not
a whole
officially
hour, huh?
call it.
Whoa.
A whole hour. Yeah. Awesome.
Today's topic was something that JT submitted. You wanted to highlight Dragonite. Is that right?
Yeah, I figured a nice little segment we could start doing is a spotlight on a particular Pokemon. I'd be thrilled if our listeners were supplying future spotlights. But if not, it's really easy for us to come up with. There are 1,017 Pokemon now. I
You hear
figured
that,
Dragonite
Tyler?
was probably the and my mommy.
Yeah.
I figured Dragonite's one that everybody here knows. It's a Pokemon that's been around since the Red and Blue days, so I figured that might be a good jumping off point.
That's fair. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Dragonite. Do you want to talk about TCG, VGC, lore? What do you want to highlight about Dragonite?
Well, I would certainly start by saying that this is the Pokemon that birthed the phrase pseudo legend. Despite it not being a Pokemon that is once per game in the original Red, Blue, and Yellows, it has what we refer to as the base stat total, comparable to those Pokemon. And future Pokemon would do this: Salamence, Tyranitar, Metagross. Sometimes you get 2 or 3, sometimes only 1, but almost every time we would have one dragon that would be once fully evolved, comparable to even some of the best Pokemon in the cartridge. So that's a pretty cool thing to note about Dragonite. I would definitely, when we do these spotlights, like to talk about the Pokemon as a whole and not just be constrained to one thing. I'd definitely like to kick it off to each of you guys. I've given off a fun fact, and let's talk some Dragonite.
We know that it is a Stage 2 Pokemon. It evolves from Dragonair, who evolves from Dratini.
But has also had basic iterations in the card game.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
We've seen the Dragonite V's, Dragonite V Star in the last.
Yes, we do have those, but that's not Dragonite. That's Dragonite V.
Well, we did have a couple of Dragonite EXs before it became like Stage 2 stuff. Before you had to evolve, it was just an EX where you could just play down a basic Pokemon, which was weird back in the day, but I do enjoy the attempt of creating something new.
I have some information about Dragonite here from, I believe it's Bulbapedia. Dragon is a draconic, bipedal, reptilian Pokemon with light orange skin. It has large grayish-green eyes and a round snout with small nostrils. How does he smell? A pair of long, thin antennae sprout from the top of his head and small horn set between them. It is, what does that say, striated. Underbelly is cream-colored and extends from its neck to the tip of its long, tapered tail. It has thick arms and legs ending in 3 claws each. The leg joints are well defined, while its arms have a smooth, rounded appearance. Dragonite's wings are small relative to its body, with teal wing membrane. Some interesting stuff there. That's a basic biology description of Dragonite for you.
I love it.
so much.
Almost like if you were reading a book. I
I
have a question strictly for Tyler, but I'd love it if Matt, you answered this as well. So we all know that the most iconic thing about Dragonite is that it's Lance's ace Pokemon. And in Pokemon Yellow, you actually saw 3 Dragonites on Lance's team, whereas in Red and Blue, we would see 2 Dragonairs and the Dragonite. But my question is, the first time that you're running through the game, you're 8 to 10 years old, and Dragonite comes out and it hits you with a Thunderbolt or an Ice Beam. What is your immediate reaction when that happens?
Cheater.
Right.
You don't know those moves,
I'm gonna be honest.
you freak.
Yeah, I asked myself what happened. What? Huh? What happened?
It's particularly because in the first games, all of those go off of the special stat, which Dragonite is quite quite good in. So to be hit with those powerhouse moves, man, when you were never expecting the thing that only learns Wrap and Thunder Wave, it feels like.
Well, I also found out that Lance was not the first trainer to use a Dragonite.
Do tell.
Drake in the anime.
Grassy?
Oh yes, yeah.
Drake's
Lance is
Dragonite.
not present in the anime pretty much until the Pokemon Company took it over. That's a good deep cut, Mike.
Hello, Pomelo, and enter the Dragonite. Drake has a Dragonite, which he used in a full battle against Ash at the Pomelo Stadium. Then Lance comes in a rage of innocence, used a Dragonite to defeat the Red Gyarados in Scuffle of Legends, helped to stop the feuding Gyarados and Kyogre, and then Iris also used a Dragonite before Ash started using one.
It's also, here's another deep cut for everybody, is Dragonite is actually the very first Dynamaxed Pokemon. The very first season of the anime, Dragonite appears giant. It's so big that it towers over even a lighthouse. And so
that is
retroactively, it has been considered the first Dynamaxed Pokemon.
That would be in the episode Mystery at the Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Boom!
I'm on Bulbapedia, man. I'm on the Dragonite page in Bulbapedia. I got information for days.
That is off the dome for me.
He is also one of the fastest flying dragons.
Yes.
In the
would
first.
You like to hear that?
I would love to hear that, Mike. Let's go.
Despite his bulky build, Dragonite is capable of flying faster than the speed of sound and able to circle the globe in 16 minutes. He is kind-hearted Pokemon with human-like intelligence, so he's a very smart Pokemon. But yeah.
See, that was Ash's problem.
16 hours.
That's probably why he was the mailman in the very first movie.
Yeah.
Well, Ash didn't catch his Dragonite until a test in Paradise. And then that Dragonite became a core member of his team throughout Pokemon Journeys, the series.
Yeah, the 2017's iteration from Netflix, right?
I'm not sure. It just says Pokemon Journeys, the series. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, Journeys is excellent. It's definitely the love letter that Pokemon deserved.
Yeah, it was good.
Going back to the Dynamax Pokemon, that was actually his first appearance in the series in the Mystery of the Lighthouse, because he debuted as a unknown giant Pokemon. It says in the episode, Bill was deeply fascinated by it.
Oh my gosh, I watched it with my elementary school after school classmates, and it was very hype in the gym that day. In fact, the next day I traded my Mewtwo for one.
Well, Mewtwo and Dragonite are connected.
That's so.
In Mewtwo Strikes Back and its remake, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution, Dragonite delivered an invitation to Ash and his friends from Mewtwo to come to the new island.
Oh, yeah.
Was displayed on a card as well if you went to the theater for that movie.
Yeah.
It's probably the best card as well out of the three. It was either him or Mewtwo. Those were the two good ones.
I think I got both.
I got them all. I went and saw that movie like 6 times.
Word. Got them all.
I was full Pokemania. Competitively, Dragonite's been really interesting. In the red, blue, yellow days, its big utility was its ability to use Thunder Wave in conjunction with the your turn stopping Wrap. But it went dormant for a long time, and in Generation 9 has become one of, if not the definitive dragon of usage. With with access to extreme speed, but also outrage, and one of the highest base physical attacks. He's had a lot of success in this generation. Really cool to see.
Any other facts about Dragonite, Mike?
Oh, come on. There's so many. Let's see what else we got here.
I like to play Dragonite.
What you think about
Unite.
Dragonite, Tyler? Oh yeah, Dragonite's
He's one of my
fun in
favorite
Unite.
guys to play in Unite.
Well, it does say that Dragonite is very rare in the wild, typically living near the sea. Some claim that there is an island somewhere in the ocean that only Dragonite inhabits. In Generation 2, Outrage was its signature move, but other Pokemon could still inherit it via breeding. It is also known to engage in fierce battles with Kingdra whenever they meet. Dragonite has been referred to as the Sea Guardian and the Sea Incarnate. As such, there are many ships with figureheads decorated with Dragonair's look. Drayden has stated that Dragonite's power is capable of affecting the weather.
Interesting.
Dragonite is also one of the greatest benefactors of the hidden ability mechanic. Prior to Generation 5, it could only learn Inner Focus, which would prevent flinching and intimidate. But once the hidden ability mechanic was introduced, it also has the capability of reducing the first attack by half damage, which when you consider its ×4 weakness to ice, is critical in some matchups. Really strong Pokemon that got even stronger and more diverse once we started getting into the more competitive-minded Pokemon games.
It is said to save humans from drowning and lead lost or foundering ships to safety, as demonstrated in the anime. However, it will go on an uncontrollable destructive rampage if its environment is threatened. Dragonite will usually calm down and be satisfied after smashing down anything that has angered it to smithereens. So don't threaten his environment.
That's why he keeps beating me on the ladder.
That is why.
I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, don't threaten his environment.
Probably one of the scariest of the 5 Pokemon hyper offensive core of Chien-Pao, Urshifu, Dragonite, Ogerpon, and I always forget the 5th guy. Probably the guy I'm afraid of the most because of his +2 priority, 80 base damage, often with a choice band boosted offense. He beats many people on the ladder, I bet, not just Matt.
I know when him and Chien-Pao were like teamed up, that's all that I kept losing to. It was like no matter what I tried, I almost had to build a completely new team just to deal with that problem, or just priority in general.
It certainly feels like if you are trying to sit down to a 9-round tournament, you absolutely need some sort of answer or flowchart theory to stop that devastating combo. Because even if the opponent doesn't open it and they pivot into it, it can completely turn a game on its head.
Absolutely. Next new fact, Mike.
Okay. We got some stuff about the manga. Dragonite appeared in the Dragonite's Imperial Wrath, which is Ash and Pikachu. And then Let's Play Pokemon Card Game XY, a Dragonite appeared as a card played by Hiroshi. Movie adaptations. Iris's Dragonite appeared in Mewtwo Strikes Back, in Genesect and the Legend Awakened, and in Hoopa and the Clash of Ages. I'm thinking people should probably go watch these movies.
Movies.
Probably.
Also, then in the Electric Tale of Pikachu is where we get Drake's Dragonite.
Ooh.
So, in Electric Tale of Pikachu, Drake's Dragonite was the last opponent Ash's team faced. It defeated Squirtle and Charizard, and it was eventually defeated by Pikachu. That little electric guy is pretty powerful.
That he is.
We've talked about Pokemon Journeys, the series, which is where Ash has his Dragonite. Then there's Pokemon Monsters HGSS Joe's Big Adventure, which is Lance's Dragonite. They appeared in the JBA episode 4, I'm assuming. And then Pokemon Legend of the Dragon King. He seems to be in at least the first 5 episodes of that series. So
We did lose Tyler. His headphones died. So thank you, Tyler, if you're listening, for being on the cast, and we hope to have you again on soon.
Yeah, I just caught that too, that he's gone.
Dragonite appears in Smash Brothers for the Wii U and Smash Brothers Ultimate.
Oh yeah.
Listener, if you like Mike reading off all of the Bulbapedia, definitely fire off some more spotlight guys for us, because he can do this all day.
No, I think that's about enough for Dragonite especially.
Great Pokemon.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Or she is. Oh, that's something else. Gender ratio is 50-50.
It is. Not every Pokemon is like that, but
Nope.
No.
Dragonite's an equalist.
We talked about his hidden ability, which is multi-scale.
Yep.
And then his catch rate is 11.9%.
Made it really difficult for me to get one. Super difficult. But he was my first favorite dragon type ever. And to this day, I will use him in teams if I'm not fixated on Garchomp. And honestly, I need to stop being fixated on Garchomp. He's got a place, but it's like building Dragonite today is weird. And I'm not saying that it's weird like you can't build him. I'm saying it's weird because like he's got so many niches that he could probably fit in a lot, but with today's counters, I'm seeing a trend that priority is going to be like one of the ones that are focused on a lot. It's like wheezing almost, like, oh yeah, you no longer have an ability. It's like, okay, well, you no longer have priority. It's that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're gonna go over to the secret question fan mail.
Ooh.
This is something that we should have answered last week, but I forgot it. So when I asked him about it like a couple of days ago, he reminded me.
Okay.
Here is Dakota's secondary question in our secret fan mail. So he wants to know,
secret fan mail.
In all the knockoffs, which one would be considered your favorite? And the knockoff he's asking is like Digimon, Monster Rancher, Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess in some sense. And like, what is that? There's another card game that I'm forgetting right now. Card Vanguard, I think that's one. So he wants to know, like, what do you guys think about the Pokemon knockoffs that had come out, or the shows that came after Pokemon that it's kind of like the same thing and yet different all at the same time? And go.
Yeah, I'll certainly say that Yu-Gi-Oh feels like it was meant to build off of Pokemania and snag boys that were now like 12 or 13 and wanted something more like violence oriented rather than the cute nature of Pokemon and the collectability that had kind of been ingratiated in a generation. So I think Yu-Gi-Oh is a really solid parallel as far as like knockoffs, but to call Yu-Gi-Oh and Digimon knockoffs of Pokemon, I bet hurts someone's feelings out there.
If this has hurt your feelings, we apologize. Dakota didn't mean to hurt your feelings. We don't mean to hurt your feelings.
Well, I wouldn't put... Go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
I would say the only two that you mentioned that I know of are Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I would consider Digimon closer to Pokemon probably than Yu-Gi-Oh! From what I remember. It's the same kind of concept. But as to JT's point, I think, and I don't know for sure, but I think that a lot of people may have gone from Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh! And then maybe into something like Magic. I think that Pokemon might have been a starting point for people with TCGs, and they just kept evolving. I think that Pokemon is a great game, so don't cancel me.
I'm sure you won't get canceled. Out of the ones that I mentioned, I like them all. Yu-Gi-Oh has a place in nostalgia for me as much as Pokemon does. Digimon was pretty interesting to watch, although it seemed incredibly short and it was random at times. And again, it does have some nostalgia for me in that same places like Yu-Gi-Oh of like having your antagonists and protagonists that kind of fight each other and just like kind of understand the story. The thing that gets me the most is like Monster Rancher. Like that was a show that I like fell in love with, and I can probably consider that closer to Pokemon because you know, in Monster Rancher you got discs to unlock them, and then they became like monsters that you can raise, and it's kind of like Pokemon is here. I didn't really get the feeling for that for Digimon, but in each of their own right, they have a place to stay. I wouldn't really consider any of them really a knockoff, but they definitely took inspiration somewhere in the theme of things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was really weird because Tony and I were watching the live stream yesterday, and there was a question that popped up for Pokemon, like how to get start. And I thought it was the card game. Like where did Pokemon start? And it gave like TCG, anime or animated series, video game, and then manga. And then I thought it was the card game because before I even got my cartridge of Red, before I got the guide for Pokemon the 151, I had gotten a Nintendo Power magazine that gave me a Charmeleon card. It was my very first card. Excuse me. So I thought it was that. Apparently, the video game started first in Japan 1 year before the card game came out, and then I think a year before the anime came out and manga was created. And I started thinking about it. It's like, well, I wonder if this was if Pokemon was a knockoff for Dragon Warrior Monsters for the Game Boy that started in Japan first. It's the same concept as Pokemon is, but a little bit harder played. But I thought it was really, really interesting. It's like, okay, that idea came off of, like, Pokemon was built off of a different idea that just took a mind of its own and just grew. And I could even be wrong in that assumption, but it's like, that is an amazing thought that an idea that came from something else has gotten to be this big is astounding.
Well, they say that, imitation is the finest form of flattery. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to find anything that's original, especially in trading card games. I mean, you had Magic, which a lot of people will say started the whole trading card game genre, but I'm sure there's games that are out there before Magic was. It just got to be the biggest thing for a very long time, and I think it's still big, but I don't think it's as big as it used to be. I think Pokemon is probably a bit bigger at this point in time, but I won't swear to that. Don't quote me on that, listeners. Don't do it, because I don't know for sure.
Magic's pretty big.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, I remember when I lived in another town south of where I live now and frequented a comic shop. There was always somebody playing Magic. There was always several people playing Magic in that shop. So I just don't, And plus, I don't see comic shops like that much anymore either, where they have game areas for people to sit down and play Pokemon or Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or I think we have one here.
You have a pretty big one in your
Yeah,
part of the
we
rewards.
used to have two. The other one closed down, which is why I think the one that is still open got bigger than it was before, because it wasn't that big when the other one was open as well. I think they pretty well split. So now there's only one place in town to go. It's got a lot bigger. So
just a heads up, the World Championship is a prize pool of $1 million in the Magic game.
Are you serious?
So Pokemon is actually on its way to catching up to Magic in that regard, as far as like if you can go professional and make money playing the game. But every card shop that exists has a Magic night. It's definitely big.
yeah,
I like Magic quite a bit.
I remember when it wasn't. There was no tournaments to go to. Unless the local card shop was holding a tournament for you, and then you go down and play, and you maybe get a pack or two of Magic cards as the winning. But it's gotten huge. I mean, the TCG community in general has gotten to be, very big, and you can make good money depending on which one you play. I mean, even Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
You're still making a decent chunk of change if you win the Worlds there. I don't know about Yu-Gi-Oh! If it's still doing the same thing or not, but
it is.
So, I mean,
yeah, the card game community in our lifetime has exploded into this like multi-million-dollar thing that has streams and casters, and it's crazy to see. When Matt, Tony, and I were really good at a card game called Naruto, it was real low output. The biggest event we ever went to, first place, was a PlayStation 3.
which is still,
Couple $100.
Yeah, a couple $100.
Yeah.
Especially back then when it was brand new, it'd probably be about $400. And
It was the first year it existed. I took second and got an iPod 6 gig like mini,
which is still, for back
$200.
then, a fairly expensive prize. So.
Oh yeah. But like what it is now, if Naruto were to come out now, I'm sure that not only would the cards be similar to like the Dragon Ball Z, where it's got a couple $1,000s for its premier cards, but the pricing, I'm sure, would be much more significant.
Or you would have to, as long as that people were, purchasing cards and stuff like that. Like when you start up like a company like that, you don't want to try to up the prices, but you need to create incentive for people to play.
Certainly.
I think at the beginning,
people love card games.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing that from the start, you start giving away boxes at first.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple $1,000s. Yeah, your biggest events, but yeah, because if you're first starting out, you're not going to have the capital to throw out those big prizes. I mean, Magic's been around for
30 years.
30 years, so they've made enough money where they can start giving away $1 million to one person who probably.
Oh no! I'm sorry, you misunderstand. The prize pool. So like 1 through 8, 1 through like whatever the end of money is. The total amount is 1 million. Regionals for Pokemon is 10,000. Is the pool? A lot.
That's still a couple $100,000 if you win.
Yeah. But if you're the world champion of Magic, hey man, if you're talking card games, maybe we pivot into Magic the Arena, you and me. Play a little of that
Maybe.
together.
But I'm just saying that, you've probably spent enough money on the game to get to where you're at to make that kind of money as well. So Magic's not hurting. They can afford a $1 million prize pool at their worlds,
And then you get to advertise that too. Like
Yeah.
that's good advertisement for your game.
Yeah.
The big three really, really do well in their pricing. I think every other game, it's probably a lot less of like capability of getting like money or product.
For sure.
Probably get product in those smaller ones because you're honest. I mean, these shops get these cards and they mark them up immensely. So that's how they make their money. So it's giving, I remember when we were playing Dragon Ball, we could go into the card shop down here and buy boxes of Dragon Ball Z for $99, which is still marked up because they were selling their packs for like $250, and there's 36 packs per box or 32 packs per box, so they're making good money, or they might have even been like $2.99. So they sell wholesale. They'll sell it to you for a little less than what they would sell you per pack price, but they're still marking that box up, so they make profit off of that as well. So now you can't buy boxes really for under 120, 140.
Yeah, even Pokemon with like the rarities back in circulation, not a lot of people make money off of boxes at the moment. Not saying that it can't be done, but like there's a Pokemon channel called Darium's Pokemon that would open up thousands of packs, and he would like tell people how much that he made at the end of them. Yeah. And he realistically seemed to be in the hole the majority of the time.
Well, I mean, these boxes like you buy now, if you put them away, in 10, 15 years, you will make a profit off them most likely, because Pokemon, I don't see Pokemon going anywhere. And, it's just like, Gen 1 boxes are selling for what, 500,000 or more than that? I know that the Charizard, I think, at a Gen 1 Charizard, it sold for, I think, at auction close to, what, 500,000 or...
Well, that was a PSA 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, if you're opening the boxes in packs, I mean, you have a better chance of getting a PSA 10 than buying one from somebody. But yeah, it's a PSA 10. It's rare, but even a PSA 8 is going to make you...
But you're losing 2 zeros off of that. Or at least 2 zeros. If it's not PSA 10, you're losing 2 zeros.
But still, 50 grand is not bad.
It's 5,000.
No, it's not. It's more than that. It's 5 million.
Add zeros. Right. There are not enough zeros.
But you can still make money off of the card itself, but you're going to lose money if you bought the box to get the card out, because the box is expensive as well.
Absolutely.
And you gotta look out for scammers, though. Just ask Logan Paul about that.
Yeah. Like it's weird, right? Because like one of the big plans that I have, and I still may do this just because of the fact that I have more knowledge of how to do it now. But I've always wanted to open up a card shop. I've always wanted to do tournaments. I've always wanted to do stuff in my store to have people come in. The vibe that I got from an old card shop that's no longer around used to be called Eternal Elysium. And it was literally down the street from where I lived. So when I first started my Pokemon journey, biggest tournament that I went to was a local tournament, and I got first place with my deck, which was a complete colorless deck that no one could beat because I didn't have a particular weakness. And so I did extremely well. But that vibe, and it could be for just any vibe anywhere. If I just went to card shops more and just got that vibe, I feel like more like home. But either I'm extremely picky or they aren't as homey as I would like them to be. Because maybe it's just like a hole in the wall shop that you just come in, you view cards, and then you just kind of leave. I like bigger areas to where people can come in and do Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, to people can come in and do Pokemon tournaments. Like Gambits to me, and it's a shout out to them. Gambits to me is a wide enough area that I would feel comfortable in of being able to run tournaments. And I love that. And the vibe that I get from everyone there is really wholesome. So I do like it there, but I've always wanted to own a card shop and be able to justify, card costs and like buy and sell and trade and stuff like that. I think if I was to open it today, I wouldn't really focus on selling boxes. of cards. I would monetize me opening up card packs because people love those, myself included. And I would try to sell singles, and then maybe have like loose packs in the shop that people can open if they want to do that. But I don't know necessarily that I would be willing to buy cards off of people.
And that's where I don't know, man. Card it's getting hard in this world, um, especially after the pandemic. People not wanting to go into places and that kind of stuff. But you gotta. It's kind of like opening a restaurant. Most restaurants fail in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And that could be due to anything, but you have to make enough money to clear your overhead. So you'll have to look at selling boxes, you have to look at selling packs, you have to opening having a YouTube channel where you get new stuff in and then you open a box, and people will tune in or whatever and watch that. That's cool. I like watching those. I've watched several of those. But you're gonna have to sell boxes, you're gonna have to sell packs, you're gonna have to sell singles. And starting out, most likely you're gonna have to buy some cards off people because that's how you're gonna build your inventory up. But you're gonna have to open a lot of boxes if you want to sell singles. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's just how I view it, because you have to you got to spend money to make money. So you're probably not going to be in the black to start off with. You're probably going to be in the red because you're going to have to open a lot of product to get product out there for your single sales and that kind of stuff.
Oh, and absolutely. Like there's a guy on YouTube. I don't remember his name, but I'll post it in chat later because after this podcast, I'm going to look it up and send it to you guys. But he owns a Pokemon online shop, and he ran it through COVID, and it has done extremely well for the last video that I saw. Like he has done so good that he now has to buy a new house just to be able to support the business in his basement. And so
yeah, but you got to look at that though. That's online. That's not anybody coming into your shop. You're not holding tournaments there. You're just
absolutely
selling product online. So if you want that's a little bit different because you don't have the rent overhead or the electricity overhead or anything like that. You're doing it online. So you have the internet overhead. So that's a bit different. Opening an actual brick and mortar card shop where you can have folks come in and have tournaments and that kind of, that's going to be a lot different.
Oh, for sure. And I completely understand that portion of it, but that's why I haven't opened it up, just because I don't know how I can justify those costs, even with like content creation and getting my name out there and getting like people to like sponsor the shop and what have you. No matter what I do, for at least the first 2 years, I'm not going to do very well because people need to, 1, figure out where I am, 2, be able to see what I have, and 3, I would have to build things extremely slowly because then I wouldn't be able to be able to go out and buy boxes of like all these different things. Like if people like, hey, I want to, do a tournament about Digimon, like if I don't have Digimon, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, well, I'll totally order 1 box of Digimon cards, but if you don't buy it off of me, it's a waste investment. I'm going to look at it, I'm like, okay, if you want to run Digimon in my card shop, we need a crowd, and that crowd needs to be at least 30 people.
Well, yeah, I understand that. It's just that you're going to have to save, because if you're going to open a card shop, you don't want to open a card shop with,
with nothing.
Bare shelves. Yeah, you're going to have to save some money so you can buy product to put on the shelves to start selling.
Yeah. No, and if I was going to do a card shop, I would probably do online first and then use those to open up a card shop that people can come in. But I love the idea of just having, say if I had one and then you and John just showed up and just hung out with me all day. Because I really wouldn't feel like I'm working. I would feel like I'm just hanging out in a card shop that I own.
And that's cool.
But it would be weird.
Yeah, and I don't know where you'd open one, because I don't know if Oregon City is the best place for a card shop. I don't know.
They've already got one.
Yeah, so it's like down here we used to have 3 card shops. And now we're down to 1 that I know of. I don't know if we have any more.
Big one too.
We used to have 4 actually, and it's rotated through. But I think we just have Wild Things. Shout out to them down here.
Yeah, they've been there 30 years, man.
Yeah,
they've been here a long time.
One iteration or another.
So it's just it's you got to look at, when you think about opening a brick and mortar, you got to look at how saturated the area is with card shops or other forms of, and even Wild Things isn't strictly a card shop. They have comic books, they have D&D stuff in there, they have
Board games.
they have board games, they have lots of things in there. So you have to diversify. I don't know if a card shop all on its own in this day and age will be able to support itself without other product in there to bring other people in. So
for sure, but I think it's because of the fact that they labeled themselves as a hobby store. So they're like, oh, this niche, we need to open up to other niches. Like Warhammer, you can always buy figurines almost everywhere that you go. And again, D&D, like books and stuff like that, because I think when you look at a card shop, you think of hobby, and I think that's what everyone goes towards when they think shops like that. It's like when you go to get your car fixed, you go to a garage.
Or a mechanic or
whatever. You look at a mechanic's garage as a mechanic's garage, depending on what it is, it's the specialty or whatever. I think that's what everyone has for like card shops. If I open up called MFX cards, and everyone's gonna, oh, this is a hobby store, you can buy everything here, and it's like, no, we focused on cards. And I'm not.
Which is, I don't think that would be the best business plan for you. I mean, when I things have changed, because when I think of cards, I think of sports cards, because that used to be what it was. You think of card shops, you going in there, you're looking at football, basketball, baseball.
Yeah,
when I was
they were the originals.
That's what card shops were. Everything else was hobby shops, where you could buy Dungeons and Dragons, or you could buy any kind of role playing game or card game, anything like that. But we've been on for a while.
We have, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it there, because I think JT is going to try to hit up the locals, and I want to try to give him enough time so he can get there and do things that he needs to do. So, with that being said, this is going to be the end of the podcast. Go ahead and roll us out, Mike.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dakota for his question. Second of all, my peasants, I just want to let you know that we love you. We appreciate you. Any sponsors out there, go ahead and give us your money. Like the Temptations said, we ain't too proud to beg. Give us your money. Give it to us. Let us write ad copy for you. But again, this is your Duke saying, stay humble, my friends. Stay humble.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be back possibly next week. It's Thanksgiving from the USA. Tyler, thanks for hanging out with us for as long as you have. Sorry that your headphones died, and we will all see you next time. Peace.